The most controlling person you know is actually the least in control person in the room. Their meticulous planning, their constant questions, their need to manage every outcome, it all looks like power. You are meant to see it as power. This script will show you the terrified, desperate person hiding behind that mask and reveal the psychological mechanism that makes them that way. And understanding this is critical because your natural reaction to being controlled is almost guaranteed to be the one thing that makes the behavior even worse. The controller operates from a simple, brutal playbook. They rearrange the world to make it predictable. This can look like a boss who needs to sign off on every email, even ones that have nothing to do with them. It can be a partner who needs a minute-by-minute itinerary for a vacation, turning spontaneity into a sin. It can be a friend who subtly steers every conversation back to safe, known topics, shutting down any talk that feels too unpredictable or emotionally vulnerable. You feel the pressure. It's the constant checking, the just making sure texts, the unsolicited advice that feels more like a command. They build systems, rules, and routines not for efficiency, but for insulation. These are walls against the terrifying chaos of the unknown. Their world is a fortress with 1,000 tiny rules designed to keep one thing out: surprise. Every unexpected event, no matter how small, feels like a breach in the defenses, a canceled appointment, a change of plans, an opinion they didn't anticipate. To you, it's life. To them, it's a threat signal. The anxiety spikes. They then have to work twice as hard to regain that feeling of stability, which means doubling down on the very behaviors that are pushing you away. They aren't trying to manage you. They are trying to manage the overwhelming terror that uncertainty triggers inside them. But why is the unknown so uniquely terrifying to them? What happened to make their internal world so fragile that a single surprise could feel like a collapse? The core of the controlling personality is a profound intolerance of uncertainty. For most people, uncertainty is just a part of life, a fog you move through. It can be uncomfortable, sure, but it's manageable. For the controller, uncertainty is a predator. It's an active, malevolent force that must be fought and suppressed at all costs. Their brain is wired to treat the unknown as a guaranteed negative outcome. A text that goes unanswered for an hour doesn't mean the other person is busy. It means they're angry, or they've been in an accident, or they're plotting a betrayal. The ambiguity is immediately filled with the worst possible scenario. This is because their entire sense of safety is externalized. It depends on the world around them being perfectly predictable, perfectly ordered. They lack an internal anchor of safety. They can't soothe themselves with the thought, I can handle whatever happens. Their internal monologue is, I can only be okay if nothing unexpected happens. This creates a state of permanent, low-grade hypervigilance. They are constantly scanning the horizon for threats, for deviations from the plan. It's exhausting. Imagine trying to nail the ocean to the floor. That is their daily experience. Trying to impose perfect, rigid order on a world that is fundamentally fluid and chaotic. Every wave of change that washes over their carefully constructed sandcastle feels like a personal attack from the universe. Their response is to build the walls higher, to dig the moat deeper. This relentless effort to eliminate ambiguity is a full-time job, and it's a job that was assigned to them long ago in an environment that taught them a single brutal lesson about survival. This fear architecture is often built in childhood. Imagine a home where the emotional weather is constantly changing. One day a parent is warm and loving, the next they are distant, angry, or checked out, with no clear reason for the shift. A child in this environment learns that the world is fundamentally unreliable. Their safety depends on being able to predict the caregiver's mood. They become tiny meteorologists of human emotion. They learn to watch for subtle cues, to manage conversations, to make themselves useful or invisible to avoid triggering an emotional storm. They learn that their survival depends on their ability to control their environment. They become the little adult who manages the household, who reminds their parents about appointments, who tries to keep the peace. They are praised for being so mature, so responsible. In reality, They are a terrified child who has been forced to take on a job they were never equipped to do. The lesson they learn is bone deep. If I am not in control, everything falls apart. If I am not vigilant, something terrible will happen. This isn't a belief. It's a physical reality learned over thousands of days. That operating system, built for survival in a chaotic home, gets carried directly into their adult relationships. They don't know any other way to feel safe. They bring their hypervigilance, their need for predictability, and their management skills into their friendships, their romantic partnerships, and their workplaces. They are still that small child trying to keep the storm at bay. But the strategy that kept them safe as a child becomes profoundly destructive in adulthood, because the tool they use to prevent abandonment creates the very abandonment they fear. This is the central tragedy of the controller. Their desperate attempts to create security are precisely what destroy it. Think about it. To control someone, you have to operate from a place of deep distrust. You check their phone because you fear betrayal. You micromanage their work because you fear failure. You question their friendships because you fear being replaced. This constant suspicion is corrosive. It communicates one thing over and over. I do not trust you. No healthy relationship can survive that. The person being controlled eventually suffocates. They pull away, they become secretive, they lie to avoid another interrogation, or they simply leave. And when they do, the controller's worst fear is confirmed. See? Their brain tells them, I was right to be suspicious. People are untrustworthy. I just need to control the next person even more tightly. They are caught in a perfect, self-fulfilling prophecy. Their frantic efforts to prevent a future of chaos and abandonment directly manufacture that exact future. Critics will rightly point out that the origin of a behavior doesn't excuse its impact. Understanding the fear behind control is not the same as condoning abuse or manipulation. The pain of the person being controlled is real and valid, but distinguishing the intent from the impact is crucial. The controller's intent is rarely malicious in the way we assume. Their goal isn't to hurt you. Their goal is to quiet the screaming terror in their own head. You are just a variable in their equation for safety. They aren't trying to control you. They are trying to control their own internal state by manipulating the world around them. The tragedy is that it never works. The more they tighten their grip, the more love, trust, and connection slip through their fingers. The feedback loop gets stronger every time. The very act of preventing the feared outcome makes it inevitable. This creates a person trapped in a downward spiral. But what's actually happening inside them in the moment they feel that grip loosening? When a controller senses a loss of control, their body reacts as if it's facing a physical predator. The moment you deviate from the plan or assert a boundary they didn't approve, their nervous system floods with threat signals. It's an immediate, visceral response. Their heart rate quickens. Their breathing becomes shallow. A cold dread washes over them. This is the physiological signature of terror. Cognitively, their world narrows to a pinprick. All capacity for nuance, empathy, or long-term thinking vanishes. There is only the threat and the overwhelming, desperate need to regain control. Right now, at any cost. This is why arguments with a controller are so impossible. You are trying to have a rational conversation with someone who is, in that moment, fighting for their life. They can't hear your perspective. They can't validate your feelings. To do so would feel like willingly lowering their shield in the middle of a battle. Their brain has one directive: eliminate the uncertainty. That translates into behaviors like interrogation, accusation, anger, or shutting down completely. It can feel like they are a pilot in a stalled aircraft. The plane is plummeting, and every instinct screams to pull back on the stick, to pull the nose up. But in a stall, pulling back is the one action that guarantees the crash. The only way to save the plane is to do the terrifying counterintuitive thing: push the nose down toward the ground to regain airflow over the wings. The controller is trapped in that cockpit. Every instinct they have to save themselves, to pull back, to control, to tighten their grip. is the very thing making the situation worse. They are pushing everyone they love into the ground, all while believing they are trying to save them. So, the person who seems like a fortress of power is actually a hollowed-out structure, shaking from within. Their control is a desperate attempt to scaffold a fragile sense of self. They need the world to be rigid because they are so brittle on the inside. True strength is flexible. It's the ability to bend with the winds of change, to adapt to the unexpected. True control is internal. It's the quiet confidence that you can handle uncertainty. The controlling person has neither. They are playing a game they can never win, trying to script a world that refuses to follow a script. Every relationship becomes a performance they must direct, and every person becomes an actor who might forget their lines. And that is a profoundly lonely way to live. The real cage isn't the one they build for others. It's the one they can never leave themselves. That's because the ultimate form of control they lack is the control over their own internal terror. And this same terror of uncertainty is what fuels procrastination, turning a simple task into an overwhelming threat, which is an entirely different kind of cage.